Today, I'm just so excited to continue on with this idea of the praise before the breakthrough. That's the title of our message today, the praise before the breakthrough. I was sitting back here with my brother this week, and he was deciding on what songs he was going to do, and I could hear him playing the song, and I know the song. I could hear him playing it. I'm sitting over here, and I could hear it echoing through from the back, and I was like, man, I haven't heard that song in forever. So I run back here, and I'm just listening to him, and he's like, oh, yeah, I think I'm going to do this song this Sunday called Praise Before My Breakthrough. And I was like, man, there couldn't be a better time, for this. God doesn't do things by mistake or chance, but I believe that there is going to be some breakthrough in this room today, and not only today, but for generations to come, legacy breakthrough. And so we're going to look at what it means to praise before the breakthrough. And so the definition of the word praise is to express warm approval or admiration of something. The definition of the word breakthrough is a sudden increase in knowledge, understanding, an important discovery that happens after trying for a long time to understand or explain something. So it's interesting to note here that a breakthrough happens after a period of time. It's not something that you just step right in. If there's a medical breakthrough, it's not something that they just step into the lab and it's like, oh, hey, we got a breakthrough. It takes time, and it takes sometimes years or months, and it takes effort. But it's interesting to see this idea of praising, expressing a warm approval of something that has yet to come, something that you are working towards seeing in your life. And so again, it's a lot easier to say than do. It's easy to say, I love praising and worshiping, everything's going good. I just got a big promotion at my job and I'm really excited, so I praise. But then when things get bad, it's like, man, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I think I need to, I need to look it up on Wikipedia. What do I do? Everything's looking tough, but there was an intention for this. There was an intention of praising before the breakthrough. Why? Because the breakthrough is here. The breakthrough was there. Breakthrough isn't always $1 million hitting your bank account. It can be the understanding that you don't need the million to do what God has called you to do. It's not always seeing this, man, we got it. We got the big job. Or, I looked at my bank account and I have $1 million, but maybe it's an understanding of, wow, I now have this revelation that I'm experiencing the breakthrough right now. It might not be this magical thing with lights and fireworks. It might be this thing where you're in this moment in your life and you say, I've just experienced breakthrough. Why? Not because it just happened because I did something, but because I'm aware that God is doing it in my life right now. Despite my mistakes, despite what I've done or what I've been through, I'm telling you today, the breakthrough is here in this room today. And so we're going to look at 3 things that our praise might sound like. When we're going to look at 3 different people in the Bible and 3 different circumstances and 3 different time periods. But what we're going to see with all of these people is that they praised for something that they hadn't seen yet. But they knew who God was. That's the important thing. They knew who their God was. And so, number 1, the first thing that your praise might sound like is a cry. Some of us might be in a place in our life today where we feel like there's nothing else to do but cry out. We feel like we've reached the end of whatever it is, the point of trying so hard, and we feel like I've done everything I could possibly do, and yet I'm still here, and I haven't experienced it yet. Why? Is it because I missed church? I missed a couple Sundays, and I don't know if God approves of that, or maybe I haven't been living perfect. But none of that's the truth. The truth is that sometimes the crying out is the place where we really experience what God has for us. It's being at a place where we're just crying out because we understand that He is the one person that we can turn to. Maybe nothing else is working in your life, but the one thing you can do is you can cry out. It's an ability that we have as sons and daughters to cry out. And we're going to look at a lady named Hannah first off. And Hannah was somebody who cried out and hoped that God would open her womb. Hannah was somebody that could never have children. She was the wife of somebody named Elkanah, and he loved her the most, but she could not bear children. It said God had closed her womb, which means that from the time she was born, there was never a possibility to have children. And we're going to look at what happens when she cries out, when it looks like there's no hope and nothing could ever change. We're going to look at 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 9 through 18. If you have your Bibles, you can turn there. And if not, you can follow along on the screens behind. And it says this: Then Hannah got up after eating and drinking in Shiloh. Now Eli the priest was sitting on the seat by the doorpost of the temple of the Lord. And she was greatly distressed. And she prayed to the Lord, and she wept bitterly. And she made a vow and said, Lord of armies, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your bondservant and remember me, and not forget your bondservant, but will give your bondservant a son, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and a razor shall never come to his head. Verse 12, now it came about, as she continued praying before the Lord, that Eli was watching her mouth. And for Hannah, she was speaking in her heart, only her lips were quivering, but her voice was not heard. And so Eli thought she was drunk, and he said to her, how long will you behave like a drunk? Get rid of your wine. But Hannah answered and said, no, my Lord, I am a woman despairing in spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but I have poured out my soul before the Lord. How many of us have been in a place in our lives where there's nothing else you can do? There's no sound coming out of your mouth. You're in a place where you just feel like there's nothing to do but cry out. Sierra and I experienced something like that a couple years ago when we found out she was pregnant with Asher, who's our oldest son. He's 3 now. And we found out she was pregnant, and just a couple months later, we thought she had a miscarriage. It was really bad. She was in a lot of pain. It was just not a pretty sight. It was a lot of things that everything pointed to the fact that it's a miscarriage. You could look up on Wikipedia, what does it mean if this, and this happens? And everything's going to tell you that, there was a miscarriage. And so what we did in that moment, it was, 9 or 10 p.m. at night, and we just turned on worship and we just cried and we just prayed because there was nothing else to do but trust. That was it. And even though everything pointed to that, we ended up going and getting an ultrasound a couple weeks later, and sure enough, there was a baby. And so again, it leads you to a place where you realize that no matter what happens, you trust who God is. You trust who he told you he's always been. And I'm telling you, in that moment when you feel like you can do nothing else, there's no action you could do, you could not force it, you could not make it with your own hands, but you can just sit there helpless and just cry out because Jesus is the one who's going to do it. Again, it comes to this place of understanding that it has nothing to do with what we could do. It's not based on the actions that you've done or having your ducks in a row or doing everything right. That doesn't change anything. That does not change who Jesus is. That does not change who the Father is. Coming to a place where you truly realize it has nothing to do with you and everything to do with him is a place of breakthrough. Because there's nothing we could do to earn the free gift he gave us. How freeing is that? That means there's nothing wrong you could ever do to lose it. Ever. You might think, man, this sounds crazy. This just sounds too good to be true. I'm here to tell you today it is not. Your Father is even better. Do not consider, verse 16, it says, do not consider your bondservant a useless woman, for I have spoken until now out of my great concern and provocation. Then Eli answered and said, go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant your request that you have asked of him. And she said, let your bondservant find favor in your sight. So the woman went on her way and ate, and her face was no longer sad. And we see that she was in a place where she could do nothing but cry out, and she did. And what she did in that moment is she asked God for something. She asked him for something. And so many times we say, God, I need $1 million. I need that third car. That Range Rover was so sweet, God. The Bible says, ask and I shall receive. Those are a cool pair of cowboy boots. I need those. That's me. That's the struggle I'm in right now. Me and my brother just send each other cowboy boots. Like, hey, look at these. It's like, dude, my wife would divorce me if I bought those. But I'm here to tell you that God did call us to ask of him. He called you to ask of him. If you feel like maybe you've been lied to and told that you can't ask your Father for something because maybe you haven't done the right things, that is not the truth. When you're a child and you walk into your home, I know when I was in high school and I was playing sports and I was eating a lot, me and my brothers would walk into the house and we wouldn't say, Mom, call, hey, Mom, is it okay if we eat some food right now? And if you have kids, they just walk into the house and they eat everything. Anything and everything they want. Why? Because they know their status in the house. They just walk in and say, hey, I'm just going to take everything I want. I'm going to take this. I'm going to leave it a mess. And I'm going to go upstairs and, play video games, whatever. But why? We come inside and we come into our Father's house and we feel like, God, I just don't know if I could ask this of you because I haven't been good this week. I haven't, done the right things, and maybe I've been backsliding. So God, I just don't know if I can ask this of you. But instead, he says, come in with confidence and ask. Why? Because it's not because of anything you could do, but it's because he's a good father. And what did my parents do? Did they say, hey, I'm never going to buy you guys any more food because you ate it all? No. My mom would go to the grocery store and restock everything. Why? Because God does the same thing. He's a good father. You come in and take everything you can need and you can want in the breakthrough. And what does God do? He provides more. He provides more. He provides more. It's a shift of mind. It's a shift of mind that it's not us, it's who our Father is. She had faith when she did not know the outcome, but she still worshiped regardless. Verse 19 says, then they got up early in the morning and they worshiped before the Lord. You see here that the breakthrough didn't occur yet, but she woke up in the morning and they worshiped the Lord. And returned again to their house in Ramah, and Elkanah had relations with his wife Hannah. The Lord remembered her, and it came in due time after Hannah had conceived that she gave birth to a son. And she named him Samuel, saying, because I have asked for him of the Lord. Because I asked. And she ended up dedicating Samuel all of his life to God, and he worked under Eli and served under him for as long as he lived. But it's so interesting that this idea of asking God, we feel like maybe I don't know if I could ask him. He's scary, but that's not the truth of who he is. He's saying, come in, ask this of me, because I want to give you. Ask of me the promises that I have told you will have. Charles Spurgeon said, to pray is to enter the treasure house of God and to gather riches out of an inexhaustible storehouse. Prayer. If you're in a place in your life today where you feel like there's nothing else to do but cry out, pray. Cry out to your Father. Ask of him the promises that he said that you would have. Matthew 7:7-8 says, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be opened for you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks it will be opened. There's an opportunity in front of us today. God isn't waiting for you to be perfect to come into his storehouse and ask of him as a father. He was the perfect one. He sent his perfect son on behalf of us. And now we have the opportunity to enter with confidence. Romans 8:15, we get to cry out, Abba, Father. Why? Because we're children. That's why. Because we're children. Your praise might sound like a cry, might sound like you're crying out. Cry out anyways. The second thing your praise might sound like, it might sound like obedience. Your praise might sound like obedience. You might be in a place in your life where you know God has promised you. You know he has spoken this to you. You can see the breakthrough. It's right there. But it's just not here yet. But you know it's there. And God even told you the victory will be yours. And we're going to look at a man named Joshua today. See, Joshua's praise came from a place of knowing the victory in the battle was already won. They were sitting outside of the walls of Jericho, and it says that the walls were tightly shut. No one went in, and no one came out. It was a fortress. You might be looking at a mountain in front of you today, a fortress that you feel like there's no way this could ever happen, but God is speaking to you today saying, the battle has already been won. The battle has already been won. It's time to praise. Joshua chapter 6, 1-5, and it says this. Now Jericho was tightly shut because of the sons of Israel. No one went out and no one came in. But the Lord said to Joshua, see, I have handed Jericho over to you with its king and the valiant warriors. And you shall march around the city, all the men of the war, circling the city once. You shall do so for 6 days. Also 7 priests shall carry 7 trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark. Then on the 7th day you shall march around the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow the trumpets, and it shall be that they make a long blast with the ram's horn, and when you hear the sound of the trumpet, all the people shall give a great shout, and the walls of the city will fall down flat, and the people shall go up, every one straight ahead. And we see now that they did exactly this. They went around the city 1 time every day for 6 days, and on the 7th day, they did it 7 times, and it brings us to verse 15 here, and it says, then on the 7th day, they got up early at the dawning of the day and marched around the city the same way 7 times. Only on that day did they march around the city 7 times. And at the 7th time, when the priests blew the trumpets, Joshua said to the people, shout, for the Lord has given you the city. That was before the walls fell. And it said here that they went around the city the same way that they had already done it. You might feel like you've circled this breakthrough 6 days in a row, and it's time to do it 7 times on the 7th day. But what God is saying is do it the same way. And there's going to come a time to praise. And they praised. They did all of this on what God said. They took his word as truth, and they trusted him. And what they did with that trust is praise. The praise sometimes requires discipline and obedience. A lot of times, obedience in church, you'll get half the people that say, man, I don't really want to hear this part. And you'll get the other half like, it's time to be obedient. That's right. I know a lot of these people in here. I saw them. They haven't been obedient. And it is. Sometimes it's an interesting topic to talk about in church, but a lot of times we feel like because we preach the grace message, there's this idea that there's no obedience to be had. But that's not the truth. We see that obedience isn't what gives us our salvation. We see that we are obedient because we got a free salvation. We get to be obedient. We get to trust God. We get to do these things. And we see that Joshua, God said, hey, you are going to have this breakthrough, but it is going to require some obedience. And God is telling us today there is going to be breakthrough, but there is some obedience in the future. And that does not mean that you follow the law, and that does not mean that you have to be perfect, and that does not mean that if you make mistakes, it's not going to happen. What that means is it is an opportunity in front of us to trust. It's an opportunity in front of us to obey. Obedience, the definition, is compliance with an order, request, or law or submission to another's authority. Another Greek word for it in the New Testament is to trust. To trust. Do you trust what God told you enough to praise before the walls came down? To march around the city? To march around the breakthrough before it came down? To walk around saying, devil, I know you see me, but I'm going to keep walking around this, and it's going to come time that these walls are going to fall because I trust what God told me. Romans 12:1 says, and so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all he has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind he will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship him. While the Bible places a strong emphasis on obedience, it's critical to remember that believers are not justified and made righteous by obedience. Salvation is a free gift of God, and we can do nothing to merit it. True Christian obedience flows from a heart of gratitude for the grace we have received from the Lord. It's an understanding that we have received this all for free. What better opportunity to trust? Has God not done enough for us to merit our trust? To say, God, even when I've been the worst, you've been the best. I'm going to trust you. The song we sang today, I sing because I trust you. It might feel like it looks the worst it's ever looked, but we trust and we praise because of who God has always been. I mean, when you watch sports, when you watch any type of team atmosphere or team game, you see that it's all about trust. It's all about being obedient and trusting a game plan of a coach or a boss. It means that even though you might not have the answers and the answers might not be there, you trust what the person that's over you is telling you to do to see out the victory, right? My dad actually coached us for a long time in baseball. He was our baseball coach all through the years. He got kicked out more than any other coach in the league. He was a pastor, by the way. But I'm telling you, when you have the opportunity to say, hey, this is what you do, you get up to the plate, you stand like this, you swing like this is going to bring about the victory for you. You're going to get a hit. Why? Because I've been there and I've done that already. It's taking the word of somebody that you trust and saying, I trust that because you've already seen that out. You've already seen it out. God has already done. He sent Jesus before you because we could never do it. He sent Jesus before us because we could never do it. And now we have the opportunity to trust Jesus because he went and did it for us. It's an opportunity in front of us to trust. Joshua understood what God had asked and called him to do, and he was obedient because he trusted who God was. God had been faithful to him. He's been faithful to us. He has not proven otherwise. And until that point, we have no other reason than to trust him. To trust. 1 Corinthians 15:57 says, but thanks be to God who gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. We have the victory. Our praise in the season we're in right now might sound like obedience. The praise might be walking around the breakthrough before we see the walls fall. And it's hard to do. It's hard to do because we have things in our life, and just like anything. God, I see it. It's right here in front of me. I don't want to walk around again 7 times on the 7th day like I've done already. But he's saying, do you trust me? Because there's going to come a time to shout and praise, and you're going to see the walls fall flat. And I believe that today in this room. We know the breakthrough is ours, but we're obedient anyways. Third and lastly, our praise might sound like a dream. We might have people in our lives saying, you know what? I know that God put a dream on the inside of my heart. He put something on the inside of my heart, and I'm going to see it come to pass in my life. We might feel like, or we might have been told that the dream that God put on the inside of us wasn't going to come true because of maybe the actions that we've done or the things we do. But I'm telling you, there's a dream on the inside of you that God has placed there for a reason. And we need to be in the place where we will not let anything or anyone, even ourselves, take that dream from us. You might have people in your life say, man, you're dreaming, you're crazy. There's no way you can see that much breakthrough in your life. There's no way God could do something that miraculous in your life. There's no way. Dream anyways. We're going to look at a man named Joseph today. He had a nickname, it was the Dreamer. We're going to go through a quick synopsis of the life of Joseph, and I promise one day we'll come back to this, and this is a whole sermon in itself. I love preaching about Joseph. I feel like he is an amazing example of us. It's an amazing example of people who have something on the inside of them that face setbacks after setback after setback and continue to dream. And so we're going to start in Genesis chapter 37, 3 through 5, and we're going to give a quick synopsis of this man if you don't know who he is. Now Israel, who's the father, loved Joseph more than all of his other sons, and Joseph was the 11th son. Correct? Yeah, I'm right. I know what I'm talking about. He loved Joseph more than all of the sons. Benjamin came later. He was the 12th because he was the son of his old age. And he made him a multicolored tunic. You might have heard of the coat of many colors. We tried to reenact that on the path this morning. The multicolored tunic, and his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all the brothers, and so they hated him and could not speak to him on friendly terms. Then Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. And so what happens is Joseph has 2 different dreams, and both of the dreams result in his brothers bowing down to him. Right? If my brother came to me and said, hey, I had this awesome dream, you're going to bow down to me, I'd be pretty mad too. Right? But what he does is he shares his dream anyways. He says, I know that there's something to this. And a lot of times what we do is when we have a dream on the inside of us, we say, well, I just don't know how that's going to make my friend group feel. Like, what? I don't know if I tell them the dream that God put on the inside of me. Like, it might offend them. It might upset them. They might have an opportunity to talk me out of it. So I'm just going to keep it to myself. But Joseph decided to share his dream anyways. And so what happens is his brothers decide to turn on him. They reenact a fake death. They put blood on his coat. They take it back to his father. You know, Joseph died. He was attacked. What they did is they threw him in a pit and they sold him as a slave. I mean, you can go from one day being your father's favorite in his house, the next day you're going to be in a pit getting sold into slavery, and that was Joseph's life. Then Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an Egyptian officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the bodyguard, brought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him down there. And the Lord was with Joseph. So he became a successful man. Do you see that? Even as a slave, the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man. He was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. Now his master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord made all that he did prosper in his hand. So Joseph found favor in his sight and became his personal servant, and he made him overseer of his house and put him in charge of everything that he owned. Isn't that awesome? Joseph is probably like, man, this is the dream. This is the dream that God put on the inside of me. But wait. Then Potiphar's wife tries to sleep with Joseph and accuses him that he attacked her. So Potiphar throws him back in jail. You're like, he could be sitting there like, what the heck is happening, God? You gave me a dream, and all I'm seeing is setbacks. You told me that this would come through, that I would see the breakthrough. And yet here I am again, imprisoned. Again. But he praised. And he still had the dream on the inside of his heart. Even while he was in prison for the second time, he still does what God placed in his heart to do. His circumstances did not change the dream that was on the inside of him. So when he's in the prison cell, he interprets a dream for a man that was in there with him. The man had this dream. Joseph interprets it. Well, now the guy is going to get out of prison, and Joseph says, "Don't forget me." Well, years go by, and this guy ends up coming before Pharaoh, and there's an opportunity because Pharaoh had a dream. And he's like, man, I just don't know what this means. This is crazy. And so they bring this guy in, and this guy said, well, I remember there was somebody that was able to interpret dreams. And so Pharaoh called for Joseph. Then Pharaoh said to his servants, can we find a man like this in whom there is a divine spirit? What if we face setback after setback after setback, but we never stop sharing the dream that was on the inside of us? There would come a time when somebody said, I remember this person that shared a dream. They had a dream on the inside of them, and they never let anything stop them. He had a divine spirit. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has informed you of all of this, after Joseph interprets Pharaoh's dream, there is no one as discerning and wise as you are. You shall be in charge of my house, and all of my people shall be obedient to you. Only regarding the throne will I be greater than you. The dream came true. He was in a place where there was nobody in the land that was above him other than Pharaoh. I'm telling you today, there's a dream that God put on the inside of you, and you just said, God, I just thought this would come true for me. I just thought this would happen for me. But here I am again. I find myself in a place what feels like a prison where I just feel like I can't do it. But he's saying, continue to have that dream on the inside of your heart. Continue to praise. Continue to be obedient. Continue to cry out. Because there's going to come a time. So how do we praise? How do we praise when it looks like the dream that God has given us has no life? How? How do we do it? How can we dream without knowing the end? I'm a hopeless dreamer. I mean, I'm a fan of a football team that I was watching a Super Bowl one time, and they were up 28-3. And man, I'm with my friends, and I'm celebrating. I'm jumping. I'm like, man, this is the best. The outcome was set. I was so excited. Little did I know that wasn't the outcome. And this divine-spirited man named Tom Brady led a comeback and beat my team. All of this to say, that's life. That we feel like, man, how can I cheer when I don't know the outcome? But how good do we have it that we do know the outcome? That God sent his son Jesus to die for us. That there was nothing we could ever do to earn it or deserve it. But we get to rest in it today. You get to praise no matter how dark it looks, no matter how bleak it looks, because you know the outcome. You know who's leading your team. And you can say, I know how it looks, devil, but I know that I have the victory. I know who my Father is. Hebrews 13:8-9 says, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. Do not be misled by the varied and strange teachings. Amen. For it is good for the heart to be strengthened by grace, not by foods through which those who were so occupied were not benefited. I'm telling you today, we have been lied to. We have been told some strange teachings about who our God is, about the grace that he has given us. And today, the truth will set you free. Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And he said that I would not do anything that I did not first see the Father do. So if you feel like, well, the Old Testament, God's angry. No, Jesus lived a perfect life on earth and only loved. And he said, the only things you will see me do is things I first seen the Father do. The Father is love. Jesus is love. The circumstances around us do not dictate our praise. I was listening to Bill Johnson. He's a pastor of Bethel, and he was telling a story about a friend that he had. And I listened to this last night, and I was just like, I feel like there's going to be an opportunity to share this. And he said that he had a friend that was just being harassed by the devil and just going through it. And it was tough. And so what he did is this guy got 2 chairs, and he set these 2 chairs facing each other. And he said, devil, you're going to sit here and you're going to watch me while I worship God. While I praise. You're going to watch me while I experience my breakthrough. You don't get a choice. You don't get to have my life. You don't get to have my children. You get to see me praise, no matter how it looks. Joseph never let the circumstance change his praise. It's about time we started walking in the promise. We started walking in faith, not by feeling. If Joseph walked by feeling, he would have stayed in the hole that first time, in prison, enslaved. But he walked by faith. Genesis 45, 1-5, and this is the end of Joseph's story, and I just wanted to share this because there was now a famine in the land many years later, and his brothers come back into town because they need food. Their wheat harvest is gone. They come in and they meet this man, Joseph, their brother, who they do not recognize. Then Joseph could not control himself in front of everyone standing before him, and he shouted, have everyone leave me. So he had everybody leave the room except his brothers. So there was no one with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. Then he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard it, and the household of Pharaoh heard about it. And Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? But his brothers could not answer him, for they were terrified in his presence. Man, this guy's going to kill us. He's one of the most powerful people in all of the land. He's going to kill us because of what we did to him. Then Joseph said to his brothers, please come closer to me. And they came closer. And he said, I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold to Egypt. Now do not be grieved or angry with yourselves because you sold me here, for God sent me ahead of you to save your lives. Talk about perspective. God, he knew that God sent him there so this moment would come where he could save their lives. I'm telling you, if that's not the perfect representation of our Father. God is good. God does not put us in places like Joseph. We could look at this story. He does not put us in places to teach us lessons. It's not, hey, God, I'm here right now because I just haven't been acting right, and God's teaching me a lesson so I can come out of this, I was an alcoholic and I almost died, and God did that to save my life and bring me out of that. That's not your God. That's not our God. He doesn't do things to teach us lessons. There are circumstances of things we do on this earth. But he does not do things to teach us lessons. He does not put you in places so you'll realize how bad you are. He puts you end up in places where you can realize how good he is. He uses those places to praise, to experience the breakthrough. How can we do these things? How can we cry out? How can we be obedient? How can we dream? Because Jesus. Not because of what we've ever done, because of Jesus. Get yourself out of your own way. The old man is dead. The new man is alive. Stop letting the mistakes of your past and things that you've done take away your future. When you look at your past, you should see Jesus on the cross, dying for you, making you white as snow. You should not be seeing the things you did yesterday and last year. Those who have died to sin are no longer ruled by sin. God's not tripping on your sin. He's not worried about your sin because he washed it away. He's saying, partner with me and let's make a difference. Let's experience breakthrough. I'm doing it. Are you aware of it? Isaiah 25:1 says, Lord, you are my God. I will exalt you. I will give thanks to your name, for you have worked wonders, plans formed long ago with perfect faithfulness. Martin Luther said, faith is a living, bold trust in God's grace, so certain of God's favor that it would risk death 1,000 times trusting in it. Such confidence and knowledge of God's grace makes you happy, joyful, and bold in your relationship to God and all creatures. The Holy Spirit makes this happen through faith. Because of it, you freely, willingly, and joyfully do good to everyone, serve everyone, suffer all kinds of things, love and praise the God who has shown you such grace. What an opportunity in front of us today for our city, for our families. God is doing something. We praise because of who God is, because who he's always been. He does not change based on our praise. Our praise changes based on who we understand him to be in our life. So who is God to you? Who's God to us? He's a good Father. He's loved you all this way, and he has no plans of stopping. Not today, not tomorrow, not based on anything you can do. And that should empower us to go and dream and do. Jesus, we love you and we honor you today, and we thank you for the opportunity to be your children. We thank you for the opportunity that we get to enter your storehouse with thanksgiving, Jesus. We thank you that because of who you are, because of what you did on the cross, because of who you were on this earth, Jesus, and who you've always been, we get to live freely, walk freely, not ashamed, not guilty, not afraid of our mistakes or our past or our sin, but looking at you, looking towards you, Jesus, looking towards the future. You've made us white as snow. You did it all for us. You required nothing in return, Jesus, but we get to bask in the presence of everything that you've called us to be and called us to do. We honor you in Jesus' mighty name. Amen and amen. Let's give the Lord a shout of praise today. He is worthy of it.